All right, let's do some viewer comments and questions. This one comes from EW Afex. Makes me smile seeing you try to use words to convey this suchness. Let's go ahead and start creating a new language around non-duality that might, but probably not, mitigate the difficulty of expressing the inexpressible. Yeah. When I try to point in the most direct way, or in the more direct ways, it has this funny feel to it because clearly there's no way to point to it. It's just not like that. It's too simple. It's too already there. So anyone I'm sort of talking to, or when I'm making these videos, anyone who's listening to it, I always want to just caution you that like what I'm saying isn't obscure in the way that the mind might say, oh, later on I'll understand what he's talking about. No, it's not that. And it's also not like, oh, in the future when I have this amazing realization, then I'll understand this. That's not what it is either. What I'm actually pointing to is in your experience. Always. So anything I'm ever pointing to, no matter how subtle or whatever the freaking words are coming out my mouth, it's already in your experience, I promise. Is it suchness? Sure. Is it thusness, thisness? Yeah. Isness? We could say all that. These are goofy words that talk about the ineffability of it, but it's also very simple. It's the sensations you're experiencing right now. It is the sounds in your experience, in your environment. It is thought. It is the movement of mind. It's the sensation. It's the sum total of everything you're experiencing. And it's any thoughts about that sum total. And that gets added to the totality as well. So there's nothing outside of this. There's also nothing inside of it. It has no actual substance either, what I'm pointing to. But that's also in your experience. That's not something you aren't experiencing. I can say that the sense of the you constantly trying to stand back from experience to put experience in a box that's digestible to the mind, that's just happening. There's nothing special there either. However, that's what's obscuring what I'm pointing to, if anything. Not that it's not here in your experience, not that it's some special state. That's not what's obscuring it. What's obscuring it is actually the sense of a self trying to stand apart from it and get it. The chasing of it, in a way, right? The seeking of it, or the trying to elucidate it or clarify it or understand it. It's a strange problem, right? It's like the opposite of every other problem in a way. But thank you for your comment. All right. This comes from Cormac Moose. It says, thanks. The sliver of self keeps reappearing. There's so much vulnerability perceived in not grabbing onto thoughts, especially at work. So jumping around between confusing, but I guess part of the process. It can be. There's definitely an adjustment period with letting go of thoughts. Often what happens is these sneaky fear thoughts come in that like, well, what am I going to do when I don't have thoughts? I mean, I have all this stuff to take care of. I have family to manage. I have work. I have, will I be able to take care of myself? Like everything's going to fall apart without thoughts. Of course, it's a thought telling you that, right? Thoughts have this like codependent relationship with us. They're like, you won't survive out there without me, right? But if you're believing that thought and it feels like your thought, it sure feels real and it will trigger fear, right? Strangely, that entanglement itself with thought can be a little tricky, right? It can actually distract you and it can make you not so present and maybe make you not function quite as well for a while or whatever. But so can anxiety, right? Anxiety is a similar thing where it's like all up in the mind and worrying and rumination and all of it, right? We're trying to break the spell of all that. That's the point. Break the spell meaning really thoroughly recognize and digest that you don't need to constantly refer to thought to function in life at all. You just don't. You can function just fine without thoughts. Yes, there can be an adjustment period, but even that, there's no rule to it. Usually if you're stumbling or having challenges, it's not because there are no thoughts, it's because there are thoughts saying, oh my God, what's going to happen when there are no thoughts, right? Thoughts are sneaky that way. Thank you for your comment. This one comes from Zendo Cone Love. All right, Zendo Cone Love. Thank you for your good pointing, my friend, and guidance in circling. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Where else we're going here? The deeper this gets, the more I feel supported by a familiar but unknown entity. It wants nothing but acceptance. I love it. can be an entity, it can be totally impersonal, but there's definitely something that not only just wants acceptance, we could say, but is made out of acceptance. It also just wants to give acceptance, right? And those aren't two. Yeah. This comes from Jeannie Harden. I love what if entries into the unknown. It really helps me move into new realms. Yeah, I kind of like that approach too. I should probably do it more. These inquiries where I just kind of ask, well, what if? What if this? What if that? What if not this? What if not that? Right? It just opens us up to a mystery. And of course, you can do it yourself. That kind of inquiry, right? What if the solidity I'm perceiving in my environment right now is not at all what I think it is? What if that solidity of the apparent physical world is actually nothing but thought? What if the sense of being separate from everything all the time is nothing but thought? How would that feel? How would it feel to be in contact all the time with everything? What if? What if that was possible, right? This one comes from Infinite Nothing. It's always just this one complete perfection that feels like hell. I like that little snag at the end. Mm-hmm. Perfect imperfection, imperfect perfection. Abide and non-abiding. Words. All right. This is from Unto Anestesivine. It says, the human doing has come to an end, and the human being has been released. There's nothing left to do that has to be done, nowhere left to go, nothing left to seek. I like it. But I will ask, is there a hindrance to moving, seeking, going? Is there a hindrance to it? Right? Because sometimes we start to reify the absolute. Not saying you're doing that at all, but be aware that can happen. Anyway, it says, this is possible and it's worth it. Thank you for all your guidance, Angelo. Thank you to all the teachers. My pleasure. Sounds like you've realized freedom. Beautiful. This one's from Alolo Sue. I don't live in a permanent state of anatta, but I can make an easy analogy here for people as a musician. Sometimes the music just takes over and I am literally not there. Yeah. It can happen soloing on strings, but it definitely happens playing in drum circles. Many times the music just trans itself. This comes to rappers and poets who can freestyle on the spot too. Yeah. Vocalists know this. All kinds of artists know this. You could call it a flow state, but it's a flow state to the max, right? To where there's like just no one there anymore. Other people who experience this and describe it as an experience are people who do extreme sports often. Yep. Certainly can happen in meditation. Okay, then it says, I'll add a comment that on the YouTube world, a lot of people seem caught up on if they had an awakening or not, but life is full of awakenings and you can have many spiritual insights. It's weird when people wonder about themselves or ask someone else, but Advaita and Anatta is a whole other type of realization. There exists a psychoactive that will systemically show woo moo to whatever is always present, the you offline during this, but you come back after it wears off. Also, it's one thing to welcome the loss of self. It happens spontaneously or seek understanding if it happened to you. But if you are actively seeking to not be you, you should question your motives as seekers of the non-dual teachings. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Cool. There's some value to orienting to awakening. I mean, anyone who watches my stuff knows I feel that and have a lot of evidence that is workable. And I'm not alone in that. But it can become a fixation, of course. It can become some product of, not a product, and a goal of seeking, mental seeking. And at the same time, it is a very real thing. Kensho really happens. Cool. All right. This one, sorry. Okay. This one's from Jens Eckhart. It says, yeah, but the mind keeps hiding it. How do I stop it from doing that? Okay, look closely at that one thought. The mind keeps hiding something, right? Do you identify with that thought right now? Like really look into your experience. Do you identify with the thought that says the mind keeps hiding something? How do I stop it from doing that? What if that thought is just one passing thought? Then is anything happening? Is the mind doing anything? Right? What's actually happening? Anything? Look closely. Look deeply into your experience right now. Is there anything actually happening? Everything is here to be discovered. All insights are here to be discovered. Look closely, though. Slow down. Slow the mind down. Notice those thoughts. Notice how the thoughts seem to define experience, but the moment you recognize it's a thought, is experience defined anymore? If experience is undefined, well, you just opened yourself up to a giant mystery, right? That's a beautiful thing. Stay in the mystery. Stay in that gap. Okay. This comes from Philip's Guru. Philip's Guru? I don't know what that says. So would you say that natural meditation with the disappearance of the meditator leads to a non-dual realization? Anything can. I can't say for sure that it will every time, but I can say that I've seen and heard from many people who have realized non-duality, had the realization, stable realization, and it happens in so many ways, during meditation, during contemplation, randomly, usually as a fruition of practice of some kind, but it can happen just walking down the street. It can happen in deep meditation. You can wake up and realize there are no boundaries. You know, happens during lectures, happens during, it can happen anytime. So there's no formula. You don't need a formula. But if natural meditation feels salient to you, if it seems to clarify the experience, if you resonate with it, if it comes, naturally to you, that's great. If you also feel inclined to inquire at times, I would recommend that as well. Inquiry adds rocket fuel to the whole thing. Let's see. This is from Bell Ramley. I don't know about others, but I was forced to loosen up on the spiritual work day in and day out when I was flooded with developmental and shock trauma flashbacks for about 2 weeks. Can happen for sure. Yeah. When you really get, meaning like it really clicks how this works, how to really dig in, how to move beyond thought, how to disidentify from thought, you'll realize how powerful that is. Now, whether that's through inquiry or through a kind of meditation, or you just find your own way into it, you'll realize how powerful it is in that it will bring up repressed material, right? One of, if not the main function of mind identification, is to repress trauma or to repress uncomfortable feelings or to repress all kinds of stuff. When that stops happening, it just comes right up into consciousness. If you've had a lot of trauma, it can come up very fast in big chunks, things like that. It can happen over a couple of weeks, can happen over a couple of years, can happen intermittently, periodically. It happens all kinds of different ways for people, but you have to also be kind to yourself and really take it easy sometimes. Know when it's like, okay, I've had enough for a while, kind of back off to just sort of basic, simple meditation, treating yourself well, right? Getting a lot of rest, taking walks, taking it easy, doing therapy if you need to, doing trauma work. Then the other modalities that are very helpful with this stuff are things like circling, good circling. Other somatic modalities can be really helpful. The rest of the comment says, waking up to PTSD and CPTSD, developmental trauma, was like a professional ass kicker. LOL. But perhaps my experience was extreme. Definitely wasn't funny. I don't mean to scare anyone, nor does anyone need to be. Just be careful and respect your psychological human mental world as deeply as it needs to be respected. I agree. If my words scared you, let this help. Now I am back deeper in the work and the surrender. Even fear can feel sweet now due to its raw aliveness. Awesome. Very cool. This comes from James, trying to unstick from the stickiness of it. It is so easy to get lost in the mind maze. These YouTube shorts are great boosters. Angelo, glad they're helpful. Okay, this is from one more person, I think. This is from Shanath. Hi, Angelo. I feel super restless these weeks. It's like right when I'm getting absorbed into sound and sensation, I would move on. I would sometimes go out, walk in the park to be absorbed into my environments. But when it happens unexpectedly, I keep going away. Yeah. Yeah, restlessness specifically can be rather intense energetically. It's tricky because there's not much you can do about it. You got to feel it. You got to kind of go through it. However, when you say I keep going away, there could be dissociation. I would really feel into, even when you're in these absorption moments, periodically feel into what emotions you're feeling. Just ask yourself, what am I feeling? Just give yourself a few minutes at least, a few times a day to just stop and go, what am I feeling right now? What emotions are here? Is there fear? Is there shame? Is there guilt? Is there sadness? Is there happiness, joy, hesitation? What am I feeling? Yeah. Stay in touch with that part of yourself, the emotion body. It's very important in this. Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Good comment. This is from Sherry Lawrence. OMG, I've been following you both for the last few years. This is about a video I did with Pernil. It's Autism and Awakening. And she says, and I'm just finding out I'm autistic. I was so intellectual I had no idea and finally took the test. LOL. Good for you. Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen that video or seen me talk about it, I find people who are autistic do pretty well with this stuff. Yeah, pretty well with the awakening process. All right. This is I'll answer this last one. This is from the video I did called Death Meditation Warning. Trigger warning. From the Husky Sanctuary. Sounds like a fun place to visit. Thank you so much for this. I will need to listen to it again. I did not feel any of the things you mentioned, but wow, those words took me to a state of shock in a good way. I don't know what I felt exactly. I can't put it into words, but it was a good feeling mixed with shock. Wonderful. Sounds like a good effect. Sounds like it did something. Got in there and turned the screws. Yeah, maybe I'll do some more death meditation videos. It's a really important topic. Should not be overlooked. The role of death in awakening, the role of death in life should not be overlooked. All right, y'all. Thanks. I'll answer your questions when I can here. And thank you all for your support, watching the videos, doing the work. I wish you all fruition.